Alright, can you hear it? Sorry, girl. One.
Yeah, 3 is.
Nothing?
Where's the other line?
The same way you find it, refresh the page.
Oh, battery dead in the Holy Land?
Hey,
Which is fine.
I'm hearing it.
Huh?
I'm hearing it from your laptop. There, but I'm getting sound.
Everybody has. What? We can hear
Yeah.
something? Actually?
But they have to say, no, we
Yeah.
can hear us.
They can just watch off this. I want some sort of.
That's
I can hear you guys perfectly.
Actually?
Yeah. I can hear
Wait,
you
is
guys
it your
so
phone?
well.
What's your.
But
No,
then I
it's my
cannot hear
That's a
laptop.
laptop?
Yeah.
Do we have this laptop? Oh my god, dude. Hello?
it. Oh, we're back. We're back.
Okay.
I'm just gonna check it. Are you guys using it yet?
Yeah.
No. Well, it says linking. Connor, I think you gotta go back to where the thing is. Where the transmitter is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We had some technical difficulties, but we are live at the Triple Threat Finals here at Boulder Climbing Community. Pete Woods here with Jordan Jasper.
Hello, hello.
Jordan, we're up in the mezzanine.
Yeah, we got the bird's eye view and we got the computer view.
Yeah, we got a comp going on. We're about 20 rounds deep, so about halfway. We have about 45 climbers in this run of the Triple Threat Finals.
Yes.
So we're watching Justin right now. He's probably a little bit more than halfway through his 4 minutes, and we're gonna catch you up as we go on format. We're gonna catch you up on scoring and kind of a little bit of the history of the Triple Threat. But our goal here is to bring you some rock climbing this evening.
Come on, Justin.
Justin is just this delicate slab boulder. It's a bit of a route setting technique.
Yes.
You get to decide what boulder the climbers do first when they come out of their isolation. So all of these boulders are being done on site, so they have no prior knowledge of the boulders. They're coming out from their isolation, see them for the first time. You're all excited.
Yes.
You turn around, you're on the slab.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So they're coming out. They got 4 minutes on the clock. The things they're looking for, you will notice this white piece of tape at the very top that Justin's left hand just slipped off of. That is our top hold. So as you can imagine, that's our end goal. Justin wants both of his hands on that hold in a controlled manner. And then to kind of represent the rest of the tape, that tape down low is where they're going to be starting. You'll see 4 pieces of tape represents 2 hands and 2 feet. And in the middle of most boulders, you'll see a long piece of orange tape. It's what we call the zone. You'll hear some people refer this kind of as like the tiebreaker hold. Let's just imagine everyone tops every single boulder. And in the same amount of attempts, we're going to start looking at those zones, that orange tape hold, and seeing how many attempts it took them to get there.
It's generally that around the middle of the boulder. It's you need to do some work to gain it.
Yes.
On most boulders, so
Yes.
it needs to be earned and it needs to be controlled. So to finish a boulder, you saw Justin got 1 hand on the finish. That's not enough. You need 2.
Come on, Justin.
Doesn't quite make the transition.
Yeah.
So balancing slab here. So this
Yes.
is the move is just too far to be really comfortable with both hands on.
Yes.
If you're not committed traveling left to right here, you don't trust your feet underneath you, it's going to feel much, much harder.
And what Justin's doing in a very interesting beta, we can call it, is I was very fortunate to form on this boulder with the team. And where you can see his right foot right now, he almost made it work. Though he can stand through there, what Justin actually wanted was that right foot on the closer one, so he could cross through and end up actually closer to that second last hold he was reaching for, being on that far right hold.
You're going to see Natasha getting ready for boulder number 3. So they have 4 boulders to do. They have 4 minutes to try the boulder,
Yes.
and then 4 minutes to rest, and then you repeat that. So after the first boulder, you feel like pretty good. I recover in 4 minutes.
So we did it.
After the second boulder, you're thinking I'm a little bit gassed, but I can recover in 4 minutes.
Things are moving up.
And after the third boulder, you're like, wow, sometimes I've never been so pumped in my whole life.
And I still got 1 more to do.
How am I possibly going to recover in time to do the last boulder? So there is a little bit of time and clock management. So you'll see if you're not familiar with the way we run the Triple Threat, all the categories, we have a beginner category, we have an intermediate category, we have the open category. They all run together. So they basically they pick their start time. So we're going to be bouncing back and forth between different boulders in spots 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to see from beginner up to open. And they're all going to have slightly different strategies. The open climbers have been competing for much longer. You'll see them rest quite a bit more. You might even see them try a boulder only twice in 4 minutes. Beginners often will come down off the boulder, turn around and grab the start
Immediately back
holds.
on.
So this, carrying just a shade too much momentum across there.
And then I'm very fortunate to know Thomas quite well, and I know for a fact that boulder is definitely in his wheelhouse. But as Pete kind of mentioned, is that 4 minutes, you will be surprised how quickly that goes through. And the anxiety of a comp, it's something we can't ignore. But as we can see from up here in the mezzanine, there's a crowd. Friends, family, girlfriends, you name it, it's here. So you're just kind of, there's a show involved, and you're trying to impress them.
Yeah, you get hyper focused on wanting to put on the right show. You can get in your own head pretty quick if you don't do a move that in your head you just not committing to the extension. Driving off low feet, so we get a little bit overly comfortable when you get nervous. A lot of the habits come out. Most of the beginners have only competed at a triple threat, so it's a local. We do 3. This is the finals of the winter series, so invite only.
Yes.
So everyone
Yes.
that placed a certain sort of range across the first 3 triple threats gets invited to the finals.
Yeah, we've
There's
been-
pride on the line.
Yes,
There's some
yeah.
prizes on the line.
Yeah, we've through those first 3 events, we've essentially just collecting points. We're seeing their results. The bosses here, they assign a point value towards that. Unfortunately, I don't know how that math works, but they assign a point value to that. And as Pete mentioned, these guys that we're seeing climb now have been invited to this comp. Those qualifying rounds, we can call them, are essentially first come, first serve. You're in Calgary, you're here at the right time. Registration's open. You can sign up. If you miss the first 2, you can totally do the third, or vice versa.
Yeah, it's a super fun way to introduce competitions to people that don't compete a lot, and it's a super fun way to keep a lot of the open climbers are people who have aged out of youth, as well as people who just compete on the open circuit but maybe aren't trying to go to nationals anymore, but they still like when you're indoors all winter here, you want something to cut through the boredom of training, and competing is a way to dial in your try hard and see if you're able to do it. It's just this time the right foot up high, again, not driving out of it.
Yes. Yeah.
So perching, yes, very good, but then the habit of reaching rather than moving, that's something you're going to see more in the intermediate category and the beginner category is reaching that last hold,
Yes.
but not actually propelling in the right direction. It can be really hard when you're at full extension.
Yeah, this is something we were mentioning before the stream started, but it's the classic. You look up, you see that last hold, that top hold that you want, and you're like, well, it's right there. So for maybe a lapse of judgment, you'll just go up. That's all your brain's thinking, go up. And you're not necessarily thinking out every move, or even if you hit this, what's my next move?
And it's just one of those things that comes with experience. A lot of the time is understanding how to do movement, which sounds super basic, but it's not just about reaching the next hold. It's about setting yourself up to execute, and then in executing that move, you have to be ready to then set up and execute the next move. And often competition style boulders are going to have much higher consequences, and they're going to punish you for not trying to chain moves together. And often as beginner intermediate climbers, you do one move and then you kind of reestablish. You do a move and reestablish. What you're going to watch here is we see Mark Dirksen is going to do kind of the powerful coordination boulder here.
Turkey.
He needs the momentum of the swing to get to the next. And you see there is a hold under that triangular volume.
It might be a little bit hard with the shadow, but when we were forerunning this boulder, testing this boulder, so Mark did the start absolutely perfectly. We're going to be catching that first big green one, but there is a very small hold in the roof of that we're going to be catching.
And Mark's maybe already. So we're a minute and change in. He might have tried that once already and doesn't like it, and prefers his position. He's a taller climber. He's got a big reach.
Yeah, it's.
But you see him bouncing onto that second hold and using the momentum, that return to go back up. If you stop and try and catch your swing, you're in a much harder place. So chaining movement together, using momentum instead of fighting momentum, is one of those key differences you'll notice between the open climbers and the intermediate climbers.
Yes, and the cool thing about that kind of style of move, it is, I guess, in climbing world, it's a newer move. If we kind of went through the history of climbing, it started off on how small can we make this hold, and then climbing's just kind of slowly evolved into borderline gymnastics of using momentum and, okay, well, my body's here, it needs to go there. How am I going to pull through this hold?
Yeah, we're making climbers sort of twist around a little bit more. We're creating, opposite movement and directionality, where we're kind of sending our upper body one way, but sort of stepping through the other with our feet in an opposite direction. So the goal is to test the climbers across. Here they have 4 boulders, and the far right is a slab. And then it lets off a little bit here. This is my favorite angle in this gym. It won't translate at all. This overhangs about 15 degrees.
Exactly. It's exactly 15. And to all my fellow route setters out there, 15 degrees is the money degree. It is not the steepest, of course. And because of that, the ability to experiment with movements, I'm sure every setter here will agree, was you always think, you're like, just put me in the steep. You want that really big overhang. Nice burl, nice muscle. But this angle is where things can get a little fun, because you can put things into the feet, but you can also put things into the hand. And as we're seeing here, as we're trying to stand onto the volume for the big cross, though it is a big giant foot, you could see him slipping.
Yeah, and you're able to, when you get into the steeper angles, the holds have to be better.
Yes.
So if you are muscular, you're going to find out you have a much easier time. Here we can make the holds slightly worse. We can make the move more complicated. We're watching Jeffrey here. His feet, he's just not believing enough in that volume. He's up in his toes and not really weighting them. So you see that kind of bent knee, low hang. And if the angle's too steep, you can't use that volume. If it's any more shallow than that, he's not having a problem. So it's a beautiful angle to set across a range of difficulties. But you can really test people, and you can make holds like really quite bad on this angle, and then tell people that it's not that difficult. I mean, relative, of course, but you see Jeffrey just unable to make the footwork.
I think what Jeff was looking for was he's going to want to drop his heels next time on his next attempt. On those kind of surfaces, what we call a giant volume, we're just playing a game of friction. So by dropping that heel, allows more of that sticky rubber on our shoes. It's going to be on the surface of that volume. And though we're all looking at this just going, that's a flat piece of wood with some texture to it. I can promise you once those heels come a little bit lower, it allows you to relax a lot more as well. So not everything is into those arms. So as he's making his way up the boulder, it'll benefit him more in the future.
Brooke White, one of our outstanding youth athletes on the boulder team.
She's coming back from an amazing trip back in Utah. She got her first V10 outside.
Yeah,
so.
And then provincials.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Brooke has been on fire recently.
Strong climber, good head on her shoulders.
Yes.
Really, good composed climber. And important to note, so the youth climbers competed every triple threat before the round starts. We run them basically as sort of, just dry run competition.
Yeah.
But they do have to get invited. So they have to do well enough to come to the finals. So you got to earn your way into the finals as you see her trying to do the shuffle step through. This kind of slab, this is a coordination move, although your hands aren't doing that much, having that little sort of stutter step or a little Fred Astaire across those volumes. It is, you're looking at your hand, but if you think about your hand too much, you're late with your feet.
Yes, exactly.
It's so complex without being a paddle dyno.
Yeah, and personally, one of my favorite things about this boulder, and I love where setting's going in terms of this, is the pacing of this boulder. So as you can see, like Brookie's going to be moving quick through the beginning, but this ability to kind of slow down here, kind of reassess where she is on the wall as she's making her way towards the zone hole. As I'm describing it, this sounds like a very easy thing. I'm going fast, I'm going slow, but I can promise you this mental pacing between the two moves is not not as easy as it looks. Yeah.
Even there, there's a ton of body tension. Just to sort of not open up like the barn door position, and then had it, but needs to get the feet over. So there'll be a bunch of different ways to do this boulder. You see Brooke is staying pretty far to the right, so she's staying locked into that right hand longer than I would think, and then bringing the feet through late and just trying to crimp. So if you have good crimp strength, your mindset is, I'm going to go grab this crimp and try and force movement through not letting go of the left-hand crimp. Someone who's a little less but better balanced might sort of bring the feet sooner. So she's going to go hand, foot, but that as you go, a left-facing crimp traveling right to left only gets worse.
Yes, and one thing I do want to give Brooke a lot of credit on, going back to our pacing conversation, is her first attempt, as Pete was kind of mentioning, she's going for the crimp. But as Brooke is going through this boulder, she's realizing that I need to slow this down a little bit so this foot is moving with me. And hopefully we can see Brooke.
Just needs to get the hips going right to left, and that right foot's got to come over it's a half a second sooner.
Yes.
It's close. It's a difficult boulder.
Yes.
Make no mistake, we've seen lots of people fall off this boulder.
And I think what's catching up with Brooke right now is she's trying to get that left foot on the very tip of the volume. It might be a little hard to pick up here, but there is an angle change where that far left red hold is. So where we're looking on the screen, we're like, oh yeah, I probably just put my foot there. But for her, that's air. That foot's going nowhere. So that you can see why she's trying to get to that top corner. But unfortunately, just...
And as the clock runs out, you have to rush a move that you don't really want to. You see her there. Left the right foot way out to counterbalance, and then tried an extra step through.
And this is a climber's nightmare.
Very creative.
Brooke is going to be looking at that clock, going, oh, if I had one more attempt.
One more attempt.
Maybe that was where I needed to put that foot.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they only got 4 minutes, and
Yeah,
on
and
to the next.
it can be a difficult way to start your round. Is to be outsmarted by a boulder, not outpowered by a boulder.
That's a good way to word it.
You're left going, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I've made. That's a doable boulder that I didn't solve
Mhm.
versus a physical boulder that I didn't have the gas for. So you're going to see the root setters look to test. They don't get easier. They don't go easy to hard. They don't go hard to easy. Ideally, they're all within the same bubble of difficulty.
Yes.
But they're going to test different things. So the slab boulder is going to test sort of risk commitment balance. The boulder in the middle maybe is going to be a bit physical. The steep one's going to be very physical.
Mhm.
But you're looking to test some risk. You're looking to test insecurities. You're looking to test commitment, power, balance, mindset. There's a huge array of things that the root setters are trying to get the climbers to commit through. And it's not just about making them fall.
Yes.
The goal is to have people do the boulders.
Yeah,
The goal is to steal attempts on the way to getting them to do boulders.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak for every other root setter. We love when you send. We're not setting this to be like, it was too hard. Ha.
Yeah,
A
you're
top.
not good enough.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
No,
not
we-
about being tall enough to get on
We
the ride.
want that top. But obviously, we don't want to give them that top. For a somewhat bad analogy, we're trying to teach them something.
Mhm.
Is
See,
they
Jeff
know what
Williams
they're
here is going to
Yes,
get
watch out.
into this. The last move here, it does change angles pretty significantly up there into a
Yeah.
vertical plane on that black triangle.
Nice.
It's a good
Good
top
work,
from Jeff Williams.
Yeah, good work, Jeff.
Yeah, you're out to impart movement knowledge, right? There's something to be learned from every boulder if you're paying attention amongst the suffering.
Yeah. When you get home back in bed and you're like, I can't feel my body.
Yeah.
You learned a lesson.
And you want to look back and have been tested, right? So although, it does happen, people flash boulders across a round. When you earn it, when you work for it, then is it a little bit more valuable to you? Maybe.
Yes.
A good friend of mine who runs a podcast called Sense and Suffer says, if you weren't suffering, did you really send?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
I just that little piece of the puzzle where making you work for it has intrinsic value.
Yes, it definitely just feels more rewarding to a sense of like, I had to work for this.
Zach Robinson here,
Come on, Zachy.
kind of getting, that half committing.
Yeah, and then, so I was just kind of looking at Zach's last attempt, but so Zach's a very interesting climber in that he has plenty of comp experience, but over the last few years, Zach has been following his passion of outdoor climbing. Alberta's bouldering scene in particular has been evolving a lot in recent years, and Zach has been at the forefront of that, to be honest. So yeah, it's always a nice treat to see him inside, back to his roots. And
He's won a Tour de France.
yeah,
So that's the outdoor, sort of the Frank slide,
Yes.
climbing outdoor competition.
yes,
You
Come
know
on,
he's,
Zachy.
he's doing good things on rock as well. And just, we saw a good look at that as we got into that volume. There is a hold on the red here. It's not particularly good, but enough to give you a bit of a pistol.
Zach made it look pretty good.
Yeah.
Come on, Zach.
Someone's fighting.
Now this is always in the perfect. This is
And just
Yeah.
sort of running out of,
Yeah.
running out of gas, really. For a not a very steep boulder, it looks to be a physically demanding boulder.
but,
Wrestling.
yeah. Wrestling is a perfect way to describe this. And anyone that can imagine of just I'm holding pretty much nothing. I got to get my foot up, and then I get my other foot up. We're going to be in a very small, crunchy position, and we might see this more as just kind of this round goes on. But Zach is definitely one of our taller climbers. So you'll hear people a lot in the climbing world talking about, I wish I was taller. I wish I was taller. I can promise you there are pros and cons to all of this.
I've never wanted to be taller. I'm
No.
5'8", I'm, in between 5'8", 5'9". I have a pretty good reach. I'm about +3.
Yep.
So we like to measure not just how tall you are, but
Ooh, tall.
how your fingertip to fingertip reaches.
Yep.
I think I've occasionally been like, if I was taller, I would be able to do something differently, but I've never wished to be a taller climber. I find small box climbing to be much, much harder, as we see Jimmy Galloway here doing the outward facing. Everyone loves an outward.
Yes.
Not everyone.
Yeah.
And most people love an outward facing boulder because you get to see the crowd
I was
cheering
going to
for
say,
you on the way.
you know the move is for the crowd.
Yeah. Jamie just it
Take
is
it.
awkward enough to decide whether you want to twist in or twist out on the feet here. Like they're good but not great. Like it's you have to be careful here.
Yeah, and one
Good.
thing with this boulder is it was tested both ways, of course, and it does work. However, the facing out may feel awkward. Of course, it's a very unnatural movement that you don't see necessarily too much in climbing, but you will be rewarded with it once you get to those big old jugs that we can see right in the middle.
Sort of sets you up better as you see
Yes.
Jamie really getting into that perch, getting all of her weight onto the left foot. This is good climbing movement here, being able to just transfer so smoothly, and now just getting the balance under the double thumb undercling.
Yes, perfect,
Nice
Jamie.
top from Jamie Galloway.
Yes, and she read that kind of halfway up the wall, but she realized that she definitely needed her right hand on that hold to kind of help assist as that left leg was pushing her up. That right arm is going to push her towards that leg so she can stand on top of that and eventually reach that last hold.
Back to Brooke White.
Come
So
on, Brooke.
as you see, there's sort of 6 cards on the boulders. So because we have 6 categories, we don't have whatever 6 times 3 times 2. We don't have enough space where every category's gender gets their own boulders. So we're doing a lot of sharing.
Yes.
So the open women are climbing the same boulders here as the open men.
Yes. So this boulder is what we felt it was definitely doable for both categories. We will see kind of in the future. There are some other boulders that just unfortunately, it's either we send them the one way and they're going to enjoy this boulder, or there's a boulder that just might not be the fairest for both ways, whether it's male or female. So
Yeah, and as you were sort of just going to build on the point of whether you want to be tall or short, you do see people complain about being too short a lot in comp style boulders. They're like, oh, it's set for tall people. Morphology is a consideration, but a lot of people, if you're not climbing kind of double digits, it's not that you're too short. It's that probably you're not really reading the movement in an ideal way.
Correct.
So that I'm not tall enough to do the boulder is often, did you fully extend off of the foot?
yes.
So you have to be careful saying the boulder was set too tall, because often that's
it's
not actually the case. Especially in competition,
100%.
we're in a too bad so sad situation.
there's a
Jacob Lee not quite holding the barn door.
there's a mind-body connection with that, of knowing your size and knowing how to use your size. Again, I'm a Brooke's #1 fan, so I'll go back to Brooke in the sense of she is definitely one of our smaller climbers, but she knows that, and she knows how to make that work.
You just have to be a little bit punchier sometimes. You have to be a bit springier, but when the climbing gets small, you're a lot happier.
Yes. Come on, Jacob.
Jacob, did he learn
Breathe.
enough?
Going for that zone. Come on.
So he is releasing early. His feet. The temptation here, especially in the beginner category, I'm pointing at the screen, you can't tell that, is to stand on the footholds because they're there.
Yes.
But it's a bit of a sucker's bet. Standing on the volumes is where you want to be, and you see him, you look like he was too short to do the move, but simply didn't have the position dialed in.
Yeah, and not to speak for Jacob, but it's hard to kind of read that because you're looking at this giant blue hold on the volume, and you're going, that's massive. Of course I'm going to put my foot there.
It draws you in.
Yes, it's a giant
It's a
magnet.
beacon. Yeah,
Yes.
a beacon, a magnet, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
And we, the longer you compete, the more you recognize when the route setters are kind of throwing you an option that looks like an option but isn't really. So you have to be careful. You have to sometimes do the hard thing instead of the easy thing, because that's how to do the boulder. As we see Gordy Robertson embark on his first attempt. We'll remind you that the first time they see each of these boulders is when they turn around from their isolation chair. So you need to solve the problem and do the problem in 4 minutes.
Yes,
and it's not very long.
Not at all. And in the past, we've been doing this triple thread now for, it's crazy to say this out loud, about 7 years since the gym opened. However, we started off doing 5 minutes, but as this gym and as climbing grew for popularity, we started getting very competitive people on trying to get into competing triple threat.
This looks good here.
Come on.
Getting that. So trusting the volume enough to get the match. Can he open up? Yes, and now a little shift and a little stand.
Come on.
A red is in here, so if he wants to grab the red, which is the side of the wall, he can. But he's going to go, oh my goodness.
Well done.
Tenuous at
Well
best,
done.
but Brody gets it done.
Woo.
Excellent work.
And then we have Justin, I believe, hopping onto his holder 4.
He's going to do this white boulder that we saw a little bit just at the very, very beginning as we were coming live.
Nice, Justin.
The baby coordination
Yes,
move.
yeah, we
It's steep in here, though. It doesn't translate. It's about 40 degrees under there.
yeah, is I always tell people just kind of watch their legs and see how much they're swinging. You can tell that's definitely a little more steeper. Come on, Justin.
I look in the bag of your shirt era, you can sort of see how much shirt hang
Yeah.
you've got going on.
Now,
This is good work from Justin.
Justin is an ex-Dinos football athlete, and he kind of showed off that strength right there. So when he caught that left hold with his left arm, his shoulder wasn't necessarily engaged to the right point. But fortunate enough for him, he definitely has the muscle to kind of get that back engaged, settle onto that foot, pull through, top holds, and that's the end of Justin's round.
There's the ideal way to do a boulder, and then there's, if it's a thuggy boulder and you're a thuggy climber, just
Yes.
do the thing.
Yeah,
So
and
you
then-
don't always have to be more clever than the boulder. You can just sometimes be stronger than the boulder. It's
Yeah.
definitely a thing that happens.
Yeah, we've had a funny saying recently with the team of just like a dirty top is still a top.
Mm.
So of course you want to go up elegantly and make it look flawless to get to that last hold. But if, for example, I go up and I'm just throwing my body around and I get to the top hold and Pete does perfectly, we both have the same result.
Yeah. The score is ambivalent to how the style in which you
Yes.
did the boulder. And
Yeah.
what it does is rewards the creativity of climbers who know their strengths and weaknesses. All the way up to the World Cup level, you'll see different movement come out, and people who are naturally very springy will climb very powerfully.
Mhm.
Some people are very slow and very careful. And it's one of the more interesting reasons to watch high-end competition climbing is to see how the climbers do the boulders across a round. And it's not going to be sort of letter for letter the same every time.
Yes, 100%. And I'm sure every climber will agree they're not, though they can't top that boulder in necessarily a thuggy way. They're going to be looking for the most efficient way, especially if it's on your boulder number one. We have 3 more boulders after that.
Yeah.
So usually what comes with that more thuggy style is more energy used.
Mhm.
And
You can just tire them out.
Yes.
If you want to make them
Yeah.
tired, you can make them tired.
and we have Samantha just looking at.
Clock's
So-
just turned around, so you have your 4 minute starts. As soon as you turn around, you see Brooke here miming the movement out. So some climbers will mime them out. Even some of the open level climbers won't.
Yep.
But a lot of the sort of beginners don't necessarily mime movement particularly well. They just sort of stand and stare at the
Yeah.
boulder,
Yeah, yeah.
and then they get on.
Oh, Thomas.
And a lot of the open climbers will take that extra, and you'll see them twisting their hips. You see them climbing the boulder on the ground. So the movement is a little bit familiar when they get there.
Exactly. Essentially, what they're doing is attempting the boulder on the ground. Because as we mentioned, attempts to the top, attempts to that zone hold do matter. So if you're efficient at reading this boulder, kind of, okay, well, if my hand's going to go there, I'm probably going to do this next. If you can do as much of that as possible on the mats, by the time you get onto the boulder, nothing should feel new. It should feel planned.
And you're not hunting for feet because you're like, oh, when I grab this, I'm going to put my foot there. As you see Brooke just sort of coming in
Come
and
on,
out of
Thomas.
frame on the right. And Thomas
Yes.
making that dead point into the first of the two. Which one? It's
Come on, Tommy.
just gonna.
We're
He's just making that tricky transition.
And just sneak out of frame.
Outside of frame.
I'm going to imagine he's trying to go Gaston, which is going to be...
See him making the smears work for him there.
If I'm a betting man, that's a top. He's going to
Yeah.
come down with a smiley face.
There he
And
goes.
then I know Justin and Thomas quite well, and I know they're going to be looking at each other after that boulder and seeing,
Did you-
hey, how many attempts did it take? Yeah.
So they won't talk to each other along the way. So they're isolated from each other along, but as soon as they finish the last boulder,
Yeah.
that's when the
The
chitter chatter
the
starts.
chitter-chatter starts, exactly.
How many times? Oh, what did you do? Oh, I did. How many times? Oh,
Yeah.
I did 4 tries.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the cool things about these two in particular. I'll just speak for them. They are close friends. They've been lifelong friends. So they get to have that connection. And then we see Brooke going on.
This is sort of a little sort of half double dyno, just sort of like not a big movement, but you got to get it right.
And then, fortunately, I know the boulder, so I'll kind of just word this out. But currently, we're looking for like a right hand that's a very sharp crimp and a left hand as well. That left hand I'm talking about, hopefully the camera will catch up with us shortly, is in a direction you don't want it. I'm sure Brooke was looking at this boulder before she hopped on going, that's not the direction I need it.
Mhm.
But I can promise you, once she's in that position, she will be rewarded for that next move, which is actually the top move, going to the last hold. Come on, Brookie.
Now, so when you see them resting, you're kind of biding your time. You're deciding how long you need to rest to give it one more good try. They'll let it wind down. You know about how long it takes to climb a boulder. So when the clock hits 0, it doesn't matter. If you have one hand on the finish and 4 minutes hits 0, you're done.
Yes.
There is no extra time. So that we can hear out of one ear. That's the 1 minute whistle.
Ooh, come on, bro.
So you sort of leave yourself enough room to have
Yeah.
maybe one slip and retry.
Come on, rookie.
But Brooke will be wanting to dial this in here.
Come on, rookie.
As we say, last try, best try. As
Yes.
coaches, we hate that. We would like it to be first try, best try.
Come on, rookie.
Brooke here needs to just be a little more precise.
So this is the handholds I was talking about. Is as you're looking at them, you're like, I wish they weren't this direction.
And one.
Come on, Brooke.
Can't you?
Oh.
So,
The climber's nightmare.
yeah, she'll be a little bit mad about that for sure. Probably could have taken a half a second to adjust her footwork.
Yep.
And then I think it looked like she just thought she could do a little, like
Yeah,
a baby
just quick
match.
little tap.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
when
and
the
then,
last hold of a boulder isn't really secure and you don't establish good body position, that's the risk you're running. Is that you might dry fire, you might slip, and the shift in balance. She rolled her shoulders through to try and match and fell off.
yes.
So sometimes the margin of error, Jordan, is tiny.
Well, and
Tiny.
the interesting thing is too is I know Brooke well enough that it's going to be. She remembers hearing that 1 minute whistle.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So when she was going up that boulder, she was sitting there going,
I got to rush.
"Oh, I bet we're seconds are
Yeah.
getting close to the end." And
Yeah, you make decisions based on situations, and you have to.
Yeah.
And that's part of competing. That's the love-hate of competing is that you are on the clock and you are under pressure to do it right now.
Yes.
I know people will come back. These boulders will stay up. Yep. So you might come into the gym on Monday and be like, "Oh, well, I did that boulder. It took me 40 minutes,
yes, yeah,
not 4 minutes."
and you knew how to climb it.
Yeah,
You
and
were
your
climbing
friends helped you.
Yeah. You grab some fuel between.
Like her
perfect.
here, sort of slipping on the volume, but making it work.
Come on, Mike.
Sliding through the zone. And
Come on, Mike.
just got to find that. So he's going to go with,
Oh.
yeah, the heel is.
He made it work.
He made it work. The left hand is good. And
Yeah.
I think you can't have a mindless heel hook there.
Yeah.
And we've seen now, the couple times we've seen the heel hook option, we've seen it be a surprise release.
Yes.
And being surprised is never actually something you want.
Yeah, you'll immediately see that panic kind of on their face of like, oh, I almost lost it there.
Almost lost it.
But yeah, Mike. Oh, come on, Zachy. Mike was very fortunate. Made it work. Got the heel stick. Second time, that was the top.
And you're rewarded for making mistakes when the handholds are good enough to recover. But if you bump that up a grade or two, as soon as that heel slips, there's no
There's no
pawing at
return,
air,
yeah.
you're on the ground.
Yeah,
Zach Robinson here, just
I am praying from atop for Zach here. This one is
this boulder is definitely difficult.
Yes.
Seeing that he's
it's
also
interesting
electing.
that going back to Mark when he was climbing this, they're roughly, ironically, arm span about the same. He's actually slightly a little bit shorter. But it's interesting. These tall boys think they're gonna go for the that next hold.
I mean, it's appealing because it's in the movement pattern.
Yeah.
But it's harder because they haven't got anywhere near it than doing what's required, which is
Come on,
just
Zach.
getting into this underplay.
Well, and so we had a guest setter out here from Montreal, Christophe. He is working at a beautiful gym named Roseblock. And so this was one of his boulder concepts. And watching him forerun, if he, let's say Zach will stick this small little hole that you can kind of see in the roof of the shadow, that move going to that zone hold is not easy. You assume you're just after that. Okay, cool. I did a cool move. I'm going for the top. I can promise you this boulder only gets harder on the way up.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful example of doing what you want to do instead of what the boulder is asking of you. So you're basically fighting against the movement. Sometimes skipping sequences it's rarely easier in competition. It's often possible, but the route setters have looked at it and gone, well, you could do that, but if it's as hard, that's on you.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare that you can cut a sequence out and make it demonstrably easier. And although the move into the undercling that he's steadfastly ignoring is difficult, he's come nowhere near this pinch. So, I mean, I've competed for, a long time. And I was also, very specific memories of being trapped in tunnel vision.
Yep.
But you need to be able to say, maybe it's time to not do the thing that I'm, 8 inches away, 10 inches away from being successful.
Well, and I going back to Zach, it's actually interesting that he wasn't going for the crimp in the roof, because one of Zach's strongest attributes in climbing is his finger strength. I'm sure in the future he's going to come back and look at that hold and laugh that he was trying to go bigger to the next move. And we got Brooke White now back on boulder 4.
She's just getting a bit. It's a stretch to even get established.
Nice, Brooke.
Yeah, trying to walk through the coordination of that.
Yeah, so I think what she was looking for there on that, hopefully we'll see it on her next attempt, is, of course, easier said than done. But we're going to kind of want to drag a little bit more through that left arm to pull us to that right hand. And then that where our left hand ends up after that is a nice big hold. Yes, perfect. Yes.
Just needs a little more up. A little up. Right? A little more height will allow you to travel to the left with the height required to then to drop down. She's reaching right now. Kind of anytime you find yourself and you'll recognize if you climb, if you're watching and you climb regularly, that there are times where you kind of snatch for holds and sort of race the fall. So can I get my hand there before I fall off?
Yes.
The other side of that is rarely success, so that can be tricky, as we see Ralph Clement here just trying to trust the left foot.
Come on.
Not quite getting it going across.
No, I am unbelievably excited to see him climb today, because his last round before leading into these finals, he was absolutely on fire. So it's cool to see, I've known him a longer time. Mm-hmm. It's cool to see his development grow. He actually started off in this comp as a beginner. And now look at him, he is currently in the open round for the finals. So it's cool how much he kind of progressed through these categories.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the idea of having series. She spun in the air. And that's the idea of having grassroots level competition, is that it gives people the opportunity to try something that maybe they wouldn't, and make it approachable. Mm-hmm. You can not have to go in open and not get off the start of every boulder. So traditionally, provincial, regional level competitions are set to separate the top of the field.
Yep.
And you might not do any boulders. So
Yeah,
good catch from Brooke. Makes it stick at full extension, and I would imagine without losing too much that she will walk through the top of this boulder, which is just about getting the work done.
Yeah. Come on, Brooke.
This is a decent hold, right? It's about almost palm deep.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously.
And just pulling through to the finish.
Yeah.
So
I know Brooke is going to be upset she didn't do that sooner, but
tops
the top, and she made that attempt look easy.
Yeah, eventually it'll come down to attempts. When we're looking at placement, of course you want to do the boulder earlier, but the last boulder, there's nothing to save it for, so you can throw yourself at it.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, you'll definitely see a lot of people, especially on that last boulder, is any juice you got left in the tank, we'll leave it there.
Everybody's sitting. So sometimes people give up.
Yep.
So one of the hardest things you can do in competition is decide not to try the boulder again.
Yep.
You're like, I'm only wasting energy. That's going to compound across 4 boulders. So I'm just going to take a step back and say, I'm just going to not climb for the last minute. And it can be very difficult, but it's strategically often an excellent decision. I've seen World Cup climbers try a boulder one time.
And take that the rest of that time.
I will keep the name off the record, but a World Cup level climber, a world champion, said to me, I have tried boulders and thought, if I can't do that, no one's doing that.
Woo!
I'm just going to sit down.
Yep.
That's not a boulder that's going to need to be counted to get into the semifinal or from a semi to a final. In the final, they'll keep trying boulders.
Of course.
But in qualifying rounds, they'll be like, if I can't do the move, no one in the room is doing it.
Yeah, there's it's a level of strategy to it.
And then you just sit there, and people, who are new to watching climbing, go, well, why is he?
Yeah.
He tried the
Get on
boulder
the wall.
one time. We didn't even get a zone.
Yeah.
Why don't you try again? So I'm going to save 4 full minutes of effort. Yeah. It's valuable, absolutely valuable to know whether or not, and it can seem defeatist.
Yep.
To be like, oh, I can't do the boulder, but you need to be a realist more than you need to be an optimist when it comes to competition.
Yeah, it really just comes down to a good strategy. As I was kind of mentioning, that's why you'll always see on the 4th boulder when it's your last boulder, it's like, okay, well, I got some juice in the tank, let's throw ourselves on the wall. But those earlier boulders, yeah, you can start to kind of play that game a little bit more.
Mike Hurd here, just giving it a real good look. I noticed he was sort of walking around the big, what becomes a foothold. So I'm not sure if he's just envisioning all possibilities.
Yeah, and
but,
then
starting face in is going to be slightly more awkward than starting face out.
yeah,
But not everybody is used to turning around. Oh my! I love that.
The assist. Yes,
I
the
love an
assist.
assist.
Yeah, interesting that he started in, and I believe he's about to proceed to face out.
Yeah, by by the force of the boulder, right? The force of will of the boulder.
Yeah. Come on, Mike.
So we have some kind of halfway results.
Nice, perfect.
So I'm going to pull those up while we see Mike get all the way back around. Maybe, did he do more than 360 there?
Yeah, right? He
Sort of
might be
out,
looking
and
at the
around.
next Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
So, interesting that... So going back to the attempts that we were seeing earlier, we were noticing most people wanted their right hand. I think Mike is starting to figure this out now. Perfect on this hold because we're allowed to get you closer exactly to that top hold.
Very nice.
Matches it. That's the top. And that was actually a beautiful, beautiful send by Mike that he was kind of learning as he was going, but still making it work.
All right, so sitting at the top of Men's Open, we have Dylan Bokenfor, who climbed before the stream came live.
Yes.
Got 3 tops
Beautiful.
and 3 zones. And then sitting at the top of Female Rec is Kim Knowing with 2 zones. Female Advanced is Kyla Angelis at 3 tops. And then at the top of Women's Open, Eva Thompson, 2 tops and 3 zones.
Nice.
Alexa Vanier, which surprisingly 1 top, but 4 zones
Ooh,
in
interesting.
second place. And then Josephine Lalonde with 1 top and 2 zones. So provisionally, work is getting done. The boulders are obviously quite difficult. Zones are proven to be quite valuable in the rec category. Not a lot of tops at this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and then to anyone that may not recognize those names too much, those are some strong climbers with probably not as many tops as they were hoping for. So I think I'll probably attest for how this round is going.
And the finals are supposed to be hard.
Yes.
Right, we're ratcheting up the difficulty a little bit.
Yeah.
The triple threat it's approachable, but now it's invitational.
Yes.
So you've earned your way in, and now we're going to punch you in the mouth. And you're going to see what it feels like to get punched in the mouth for your category level. See,
yeah, we don't want to be rewarding the gold medal on just easy boulders per se.
We don't just hand them out. We don't just hand them out down here.
Yeah.
So Olhad, I'm not sure if she topped that boulder or not. The time is sort of coming down to the wire. Corey Galloway stepping into the frame. We saw Brody sort of eyeing up the 3rd boulder, but not getting back on.
Now, Corey's actually a good example where we do have, as you've seen, a decent amount of the younger guys and gals climbing. And the cool thing is we also see a lot of their parents climb in these as well. So I believe later on we will be seeing Jamie. I don't know off the top of my head, he's already climbed earlier before the stream started.
Jamie climbed already.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
Corey and Jamie started climbing when their kids started as youth climbers.
Yes.
And they were like, well, we might as well.
Yes, let's make it a family experience.
Yeah.
And
all 3 of their kids now compete.
Yes, yep.
And they're all quite good. And Corey and Jamie have become pretty solid climbers in their own right.
Come on, Corey.
So
Yeah.
see him.
We're going to really want to press through that right foot to get us as
Oh
tall
my
as
goodness.
we can. Because as you can kind of see, that right calf is fully flexed. Ooh.
So sort of not positionally set up, their hips a bit kind of in the wrong place, and you could tell it was not a secure position.
Yeah, and you gotta generally just tell, look at his face. He goes, okay, next time I'm willing to bet my life on this one that he's going to be kind of driving a little taller first, and then assessing the next move.
And you see Jacob there sort of trying to get in and out of the opening position.
Oh, interesting that he's trying a different beta. So it might look very subtle to anyone watching, but Corey's last attempt, his right foot was actually on the hold to the left, which is what we intended.
Yeah.
I can see why it's tempting that you want that hold closer to the destination you're going for.
You see a good piece of climbing there from route getting up into the finish of boulder number 2.
Perfect.
Excellent work.
Perfect.
You saw that little the foot
I
hop.
was holding my breath
Yeah,
that everything was going
very
to work well
close.
at the end.
Very close.
Got a little soul flare.
Camera ray. The Hulk is in the building. Is Corey Galloway back up again?
Going again with
a
the
bit
right
taller, or a lot of a taller climber, so it can be hard to establish.
Mhm.
It's going to feel like a small box. He's pressing that left hand quite a bit farther down past the ideal power box. But then being a bit taller, the next move should be easier.
Yes.
But
And,
having to transition is
it's definitely gonna be the crux of this. I'm hoping Corey is kind of gonna take maybe take some time just to kind of like analyze what's working and not. Though his first attempt, he had the right beta, and I know he fell. I am hoping that he's gonna realize that
there. This time he
perfect.
gets the stand-up balance much cleaner. Just
Now we were
open
doing
up.
We've seen a few climbers earlier try that left hand actually subtly pumps down to that next lower hold, and it makes just a little bit perfect.
There
Makes a
we
little
go.
bit of a more difference to go towards the right hand, stops the volume.
Really nice.
Excellent.
It's a good example of coordination being. You saw him as he was grabbing the hand, look to his foot.
Yep.
Because you got to make sure you don't skate. The volume is good, but not great. Yeah.
You're okay being on it because there's a
Yeah.
hand there, but I'm sure you don't want to just have to be.
So a wry laugh from Koryev.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
I think sometimes you can feel like you got away with something, and I think he maybe got away with a
Yeah.
barn door, and he just reeled it back in again.
Yeah.
That's a good technical piece of climbing.
Yeah, and again, I'm glad. This is a perfect example of I tried something, it didn't work. I tried something else, and it definitely wasn't working. So I was like, maybe I should go back to the other way and like maybe give this a good college try, let's say, and it rewarded with it.
Jordan, the longer you compete for, as you get more experience, you learn that you can't have plan A, B, C, D. You have A, B, A1.
yeah.
Sometimes B1.
Yeah, be
But
revised.
much more than that, and in 4 minutes, you've never really given any one single piece of beta enough of an effort to know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah,
So A didn't like it, B didn't like it. I make a decision which one I liked. I didn't like the least.
Yep.
And I either go back to A and B, and I try it for 3 more minutes.
Yeah, there's maybe a silent rule you'll see a lot in comp climbing, especially in those bigger competitions where you'll usually give that gut attempt, let's call it, that what you think is the right thing to do.
He's not wearing a dress. She is. That's awesome.
This might be a boulder first, so I will be congratulating Nat on that. Nat is one of our employees here. Perfect, Nat.
Yeah, finding that decision, the right decisions.
Come on, Nat.
I love the scan search for
Anything.
where do I want to palm the wall
Yes.
to make the balance perfect. Is she going to do the little off drop?
Because as I kind of mentioned with Corey, that left hand down does help a lot. I know it looks so settled. And
It's a game of centimeters.
come on, Nat.
Just got to commit.
Oh.
So big. You can move too quickly.
Yep.
You can throw yourself off by trying to make a decision to move, be snappy when the goal is to not be snappy. But in your head, you're like, the quicker I get my foot over here, the quicker I'm staying on this boulder.
Yeah.
Sometimes a bit of a fool's errand to rush through a move like that. But even though in your mind you're like, all right, this is what I must move quickly.
Yes, and perfect. Yeah, this is
Quick brush.
One thing we actually don't see enough, ironically, is just taking the time to let's clean up these holds. This is a game of friction in the end, and Nat's realizing that.
And it's a forced rest.
Yes,
So ideally,
exactly.
you're taking 30, 40 seconds, if not a minute. Not on maybe a boulder that's not super physical, but just jumping back on every time. Your heart rate's elevating, and you need to be calm.
Yeah.
So there's value to taking that 10, 15, 20 seconds to gather yourself. Let me see. Just
Come on, Nat.
hold on.
Yeah, I don't know if we're picking it up on this mic, but Mark is absolutely her #1 fan. They've been good friends for a long time.
Screaming in the
Come on,
background. Just subtle here, Nat.
Come on, Nat.
You know she's wishing she could grab something.
Come on, Nat. Oh my
That's
goodness.
the right amount of subtle.
Yes.
And just couldn't quite get the left foot
Yeah,
to stick.
and
She's
yeah,
back on
she's
the
back
boulder.
on. She knows.
The floor is lava. She knows that
Yeah.
she can do it.
Come on. But this will be interesting. So, though she knows what's going to work, and I'm sure after that she goes, oh, the top is right there. That immediately back on the wall. Will she be rewarded with it? I don't think she even took the time to chalk up.
No.
Yeah, it's.
And its clock is not her enemy yet.
Come on, Nat. Yeah.
Yeah, take a breath. Take a breath. Having a look at the clock. Now showing a little spring. That's 1 minute left, which is a ton of time. That can be a problem. Don't rush. Judges making sure that people are out of the fall zones. We're pretty tight quarters here, so
yeah.
You got to look out for your neighbor. So Nat might run out of time now. Of all the times to start brushing, she started brushing. With less than half a minute on the clock.
Come on, Nat. And she knows she can do this boulder. Perfect. Yes.
Listen for the whistles
Now-
in the background. That is a top.
Yes, and that was a little bit of a panic match. I think we saw in the last hold. I think most people we've seen before has just been solely that right hand. But I think Nat's idea was, I'm not falling this one. Let's get both on there and just hold on tight.
Oh my goodness, she did about 20 seconds to spare. So, I mean, when you're fighting the clock, you often see anti-style climbing. So people climb fast on boulders that require slow climbing.
Yeah.
And every now and then you can get wildly surprised with the amount of friction you're able to generate.
Yeah.
Now it's a good look at men's 2 here
And this was
for the intermediate category.
This will be fun. We might just catch it on the right side of our screen, but this will be Corey's son.
Yeah, beside him.
Yeah.
Jacob Galloway embarking on Boulder 1, but yeah, hanging out on this route here, looking at his third boulder.
So to kind of like explain this movement to someone that might be like newer to the climbing world, that
We
right.
skipped.
Oh, interesting. And
Skipped it.
the interesting thing about the skip is have seen a few climbers before where we're actually just sticking and holding that second hold. So I'm curious if he's just kind of rushing to the zone for the point, and he doesn't know actually how good that second one is.
He must, right?
Yeah.
He must have. I mean, he probably only tried
Oh.
it. Ooh, that's a shit. Your heart rate
Yep.
goes up when
Yeah.
you think you just about took a really good
Come on,
shin
perfect,
run there.
I wonder if we can try again. Yeah.
Maybe he just thinks that it has to be coordination and he doesn't like it.
Yeah,
The
that's a very
bounce.
good point.
He doesn't
Very
want to
good point.
bounce.
Yes, and it is definitely like easier said than done of how quickly can I move my hands to get towards that hold.
Yeah.
And if you have the power or even just the bounce in your step to go to that last hold, I can totally understand why he's going for it.
Yeah.
But I bet he's going to be very surprised how actually good that second hold is.
And this is a bit of the tunnel vision we were talking about. So he doesn't. His plan B is plan A, but more.
Yeah.
So he's sort of closed himself up. All right.
Yes. Perfect.
Excellent.
Absolutely perfect.
And then this is a good look at the top of this where these two holds are not ideal, and the finish you can't just grab the shiny part has no texture. There, and it gets inside.
the
So
top.
you just need to touch.
Yep.
So to finish a boulder, I know we sort of glossed over it a while ago. If you're joining us late, you need to control the finish. There's no clock. It doesn't have to be 2 seconds or 3 seconds.
Yeah,
You have to show control, which generally means you've stopped moving.
Yes.
You're no longer sort of slowly falling off.
Yes.
You're in complete control. So that you only need to place one finger to have that second hand on.
Yep.
Sometimes you see people match with 2 fingers, but control just means that you are touching the final hold and no longer moving at all.
Yeah, the judges that's exactly it. The judges just kind of look for, am I stable?
So Corey here having some issues getting through.
Nice, Corey.
Yeah. So that closer
Yep.
than the couple tries. Have to commit to jumping the foot over.
Yep.
While landing on it's a big hold, so we've given you a good target, but we're testing your ability to do a coordinated move. Can you aim your foot
Yes.
while you're trying to look at your hands?
Can my hand stay here? My other arm's doing this, and
The temptation is to want to go kind of double Gaston super wide.
Yep.
But really, if you just commit to a full jump,
oh, interesting. That will he make the foot swap work? Interesting. Yeah. So this is one thing we were kind of testing in the boulder is the foot swap doable, and not in terms of yes, obviously we can see it is done, but can we get to that next move?
is it helpful?
Yes, that's a perfect way to word that. And I'm curious if he's actually going to try the foot swap again.
You can't. The difficulty is that just matching the hold he's on now, as soon as you transition, it feels like you're going to fall off.
Yep.
So then it forces the jump. But he's jumping a shade early.
Yeah.
Just a touch early, and this sort of you gotta.
I think the issue that Corey's running into here is by bringing that left leg through, we're kind of losing that ability where our center of mass is to really push through that right leg to go towards that big hold so we can catch it, stick, and stay.
And that's, again, the goal of boulder problems in competition is to provide you a problem to be solved. And the problem to be solved is not just grab all the good parts and don't let go. It's, did you do the right things in the right order with the right timing?
Yes.
And there you saw that, I mean, he was getting close, but as you'll see other people do that boulder, not stepping through, they're just set up completely differently to have momentum.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
that, the moment where you kind of, your heart rate goes up and you go, woo!
Yeah.
I nearly died. Oh, gets the toe catch.
So let's see. Okay, we have Jonah.
Oh,
Yes.
he's close.
Yeah, so I've been very excited to watch Jonah climb. I think we've actually just been kind of dodging him through boulder 1, 2, and 3.
Just unluckily.
Yes,
That's the nature of an event like this.
Exactly. We have a lot of people on the wall at the same time. Jonah is out of Edmonton. He's repping his home gym Rockjung on the back of his shirt. But to be completely biased, let's be honest, I've been very excited to see Jonah on this boulder because Jonah loves just
Jumping.
big move, big holds, and all power.
And then, yes. that's
Interesting.
Not intended, but functional. You saw how much pop he generated off that
Now,
second
we might be
hold.
looking at the first top now.
Gotta commit.
Oh,
Oh,
so I
just carried
I was
too much.
this close to jinxing, but I wanted to mention that that top hold is not a gimme.
No,
Um,
not at
and
all.
that is going to be a full squeeze. Hope and pray that you're not slipping. And
I like the way you did that move.
I
Not
think-
as designed,
no.
but climbers find a way.
And one thing that Joe's going to be rewarded with this beta, sure, he's doing a bigger move, but he's actually skipping a move if he only went to that small hole
Yeah,
in the
it's true.
roof. So that little bit of energy he may save for the top
Yeah.
might pay off.
And he's got enough spring to get there where we saw a couple of the other climbers just didn't have it.
Yes.
Did not have the bounce to get up high enough. And
Yeah.
he's way high enough.
Yeah.
He's letting the clock kind of wind out a little bit. He knows he's probably going to give himself one more attempt.
Yes. Yeah. And come on, Jonah. Makes
Does
it work.
make it
again.
work. Now, gotta
Now
be
this is gonna be the
careful.
full squeeze.
Gets
Yes. Great top,
it.
Jonah.
That is the first top of open boulder number 4. As we
Yeah.
see,
Just swing
swinging
into the
by
screen,
into
yeah.
the frame.
Yeah.
Excellent work from Jonah. So depending on what he did on the other boulders,
Yeah.
right now 3 is, the top of the podium is 3,
Yeah.
and I don't know that Dylan did.
Dylan did
the
not.
last boulder.
Dylan did not actually even get zoned.
Yeah.
On the board.
This is
Interesting.
wild.
So when we were looking at this board, I'm sure
Find a way.
we've kind of mentioned this 1,000 times at this point, but those holds aren't in the direction you necessarily want them. And what Ola was doing is by having that left heel on that big, long black hold, she was probably going to go left hand to that, so there would be a comfortable position. But I guess the real test is would she be rewarded with it going to the top?
Yeah. And
Nice snatch.
excellent work from Nat. The clock winding down for Nat. Gotta keep that foot engaged. Just needs to be a little more careful.
And this is a physical top, and Matt making it look easy. She's gonna be
Nats.
happy about that one.
She will be. So 2 out of 2. That's excellent stuff from Nat. Woo!
Well done, Nat.
A little half smile.
Yeah, we got Jacob.
That was
getting ready to
right
hop on
down
to
at the
the-
wire
yeah.
again.
Yes.
So you're like, yes, I got a top. I'm happy about a top, but my goodness, I wish I'd done that 3.5 minutes sooner.
And then we might notice just on the right side of the screen, just kind of want to throw them under the bus quickly, but we'll have Zoe hopping on boulder 1. I'm sure we'll end up there eventually. And then her recent fiance, soon to be married this summer, was just on the boulder before her as well. So they're going to be kind of
Very
looking at
nice.
each other, kind of encouraging each other. Congrats, you guys.
Corey getting into the very quickly on a flash attempt. He'll be tall enough to keep that right foot down low.
Perfect.
Good stuff from Corey Galloway flashing
Yes.
a boulder.
Nice.
That always feels good.
Yes.
And 3 extra minutes to rest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Super, super critical.
Yeah, that's when you're going to really enjoy flashing the boulder.
Yeah.
Oh, Zoe.
Zoe,
Come on, Zoe.
just sort of Yeah, and this
Yeah.
feels more stable now. However,
Yes, as we just perfectly saw, is you put it there, I'm comfy, and then as we're gonna have to kind of push our weight over that foot, because that foot's farther, it's gonna be more of a push, more physicality towards it.
yeah,
So I'm hoping Zoe will actually try going back to the original beta of that right foot closer.
Jacob getting traversing into the volume here. Just needs to be gentle with the feet. There's a very tiny jib where his left foot is. And out and around the corner.
Ooh.
Just sort of, you lose a little bit of core tension,
Yeah.
and that suddenly becomes very hard to hang on.
Yes. Yeah, and I think what we kind of just saw through that attempt was just how minimal energy can I use to stay onto this hold.
And you can get that wrong.
Unfortunately, yeah, it was that. It could be a margin of 5%, 1%, but
Because you're not at 100. You're not redlining
no goodness, yeah,
whole way through a boulder. You're trying to decide how much do I need to expend, and sometimes over squeezing is bad. It creates bad position. It gets you high up in your shoulders. You don't relax. So often you want to relax through the chain, sort of as far as necessary.
Yes.
And so let's see if he kind of has a little
Especially-
above that. I think that
Nice.
does make it
Keeps
work. Yeah, much slower in the transition, easier to control the
Now,
swing.
this is not an easy move.
So
We
Jimmy
are
trying
going to
get
be
that foot
trying
up early.
to. Come on, Jim. Yeah. So
Ideally,
what he would want is, yes. So what I was going to mention is the only difference with he throws up the
Alpine knee.
So he would actually want his right hand on the top to allow that left arm to push through to the volume to open up that space,
yeah.
which will actually get that right foot onto the jib, and then after that he will be going through the
Yeah,
top.
you either have to be crazy bendy
Yeah.
or you need to create room to move your own limbs around. So Jacob, a good effort.
Yes, and I'm sure he kind of just picked that up on the boulder of he needs to open up some space, and I'm sure he realized just unfortunately the hands were in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
He wants right high, left low. He had left high, right low.
And the alpine knee.
Yeah, and the alpine knee.
And with I mean, he expended quite a bit of energy there. It's always interesting to see climbers get on with that last try when you can tell it's before they want to.
Yeah.
So a little bit pumped.
Yeah.
A little bit of lactic acid, and you can be tired in your core. Like squeezing is hard.
Yes.
It's not just your hands that get tired. Can he open up?
Some
Yes,
hoping.
does. So Zoe,
So let's see. Interesting. Okay.
Jacob running out of gas, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And Zoe making the transition.
Yeah. So I think she picked up that's where she wanted.
Oh, I mean, I know what she's going for.
Yes, I can
It's-
see.
It's something to aim at. It's
Yes.
more appealing than a volume. Very high.
I don't want to deny that it would be possible, but that it was definitely the hardest way we could do that move.
Yeah.
Because let's say Zoe's foot stuck there, it would have been a hell of a balance game to get out of that.
Yeah.
And then Ola's hopping onto her last boulder.
Alan Correas stepping up. Boulder number 1.
Yeah.
Sort of measuring things out. Technically, you're not supposed to touch
Yeah.
other than the start holds, but in
it is the benefit of a local comp. We can say.
Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
going to pull people off
Yeah.
for no reason.
All right, Alan.
Stepping in.
Come on, Alan.
There we
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Yep. It's a lot of learning on the fly, so it's adapt, execute, learn, relearn.
This is one of my favorite moves in climbing when you're like, I can see it. I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah, the faith traverse, anything kind of handless, anytime you're making someone get outside of their total wingspan, people will do everything in their power to not commit to that transition. And when you commit early into the balance position, it hurts to do it the first time, and then every time after that, it just looks like second nature. It's walking on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But the first couple times, your brain doesn't want to release early, and you see that in their body language. Like, I'm not going to do it.
Interesting.
I'm not gonna do it.
Changing this.
It feels closer. In your mind, it's closer. A little toe drag on the volume. Is that going to be enough?
Yeah. So as you can see, he is
Fingers
coast to
in.
coast with the fingers, and
does manage to get it over there.
And now,
Oh,
what I'm imagining, just kind of through the
Yeah.
angle, is that right foot exactly hasn't moved yet.
And he doesn't know how to swap. Yeah. It's hard to match. The foothold's really good.
Yes, very good.
The match is out of balance.
Mhm.
And the feeling of swapping your feet when your upper body isn't over your feet, so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah, and
That posture is very familiar
Yes.
in competing climbers of
Yeah.
that shoulders down,
yeah,
staring at the wall.
yeah, just kind of reassessing what's happening. Owen who's about to be climbing his boulder number 2. We just got, there he is, perfectly. Owen has been doing phenomenal recently.
Oh, a little, just not quite over.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Yeah, that was the curse there. But,
Yeah, we cannot really hammer home enough how important it is to create friction when you're standing on volumes and you don't get it out of your tippy toes.
Well, and one thing, now that we're on that, and we saw her do that in her first boulder, she took a bit to brush some holds.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Owen, we have had a decent amount of climbers on this boulder before that.
Yeah.
And that foothold that he's starting on, that small blue one, isn't good. And
No.
it's only getting worse.
I just rushed that. Yeah. Big span, big move. And
Nice.
oh, he
Owen.
does kind of swing his way through the top. This boulder is careful, looks at the clock.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wonder if that was.
It kind of looked like he just kind of.
Yeah, I wonder if that was just almost looked at the clock, didn't know.
Alan!
Alan
Oh
makes
my
it work.
goodness, he
Come
makes
on.
that work.
Come on.
And he's going to earn a top.
Yes, good.
My goodness. I
Yeah.
didn't think he was going to hold that.
Oh, I
I
would-
did not.
And no, it's funny. It's one thing maybe we haven't talked about necessarily yet, but there is the panic scent.
Yes.
There is the let's just go through this quickly. And the second you kind of just let your body do what it does, it gets rewarded. We just saw Alan do that perfectly. He quick feet, stomped the right foot, stayed where it needed to be, saw the top hold, knew what he had to do.
Adrenaline is a good drug.
Yeah.
It's not great on slab, but
Yeah.
when you have to squeeze really hard in a very short amount of time,
Yeah.
that little anxiety boost that you get from the clock winding down, sometimes you do great things.
Yes.
I mean, it is something we talk about all the time. Last try, best try. You need to take that amount of physical effort and try and do it sooner in the 4-minute window. But that desperation provides results. It's tough. I mean, it's impossible to argue with the results of people that send boulders in the last third of the clock.
Now this is going to be an interesting thing. So So we're kind of just looking at Corey's shoulder position on that one, on that big left hold. Everything was just maybe I'm sure he's kind of realizing that now it's not necessarily where he wanted it. Could he make it work? Possibly, but it wasn't optimized. Yeah. So here we go. Oh, nice little foot slip.
Yeah,
Oh,
the feet are terrible.
And I promise you, by the end of the day, those will be absolutely glass.
Yeah. So they're just sort of just domed out enough. If you step too hard, you really don't smoothly transition your weight onto them. They are going to slip on you.
I would almost describe them as take a dinner plate, flip it upside down, and get rid of that edge that's. And
that's how much he doesn't like the feet as he's trying to heel hook around his hand on a 1.5 pad crimp.
And the reason that beta is going to be kind of interesting for Corey in particular, he's definitely taller. So by keeping getting that right foot really high, he's going to lose a lot of kind of the stability by keeping his legs low and just kind of committing for the jump that he's looking for. And it'd be interesting too, once that right hand is off, let's say that heel stays, is that heel going to be good enough to get to that next hold?
Yeah,
exactly. Would be the next question.
So even there, you saw the left foot slide again, and I even saw the shrug come up.
Yeah.
Corey's like, "What do I need to do here? What do I need to do?"
Says it all.
So interestingly, you would think maybe a boulder like this, you would just reach through to the hold below the zone, but you got to generate some snap, and he's maybe just too tall to get. Right? He's too extended. Yep. Long arms, long levers are hard.
Yes,
to maneuver in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So you got to get snappy.
So you can kind of see how high his
double foot step. He is going to be cursing that foothold all the way home.
Yes. I was just going to mention, you can kind of see how high his left elbow shoulder is, kind of compared to some of the other climbers we've seen on this boulder. And though it's subtle, that is making the difference. That's kind of like just pulling him out of the wall. And
The hold gets worse.
Yes.
The higher you get on it.
yeah, and that left hand where he's starting on. So we've mentioned those glassy dinner plate feet. That right hand isn't the best. It's not the
No.
worst. I don't know how to describe it.
It's flat.
Yes. But that left hand he's going to is, you're just kind of hoping gravity and friction are going to keep you there. This is going to be
Interesting.
I wonder.
But it puts your hips completely the wrong way around.
I do
So,
appreciate though that just
I-
kind of experimenting with the movement and going,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't working for me right now. Let's try something else.
Little plan B, back to plan A.
Oh,
And that's him. It's slowly solving the puzzle, but the clock is running out.
yes. I
And
wonder.
you saw that even there, like kind of the foot double kind of kiss,
Yeah.
You're like,
Ooh, yeah.
right?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure in the future he's going to come back to this boulder,
Yeah.
walk through that, and be like, oh, I wish I got that earlier.
We're going to bring a special guest in just for a second here. Alexa Vanier is going to join us, if you don't mind, just for a minute. Give us a little bit of perspective. You climbed earlier in the round.
How was it?
We're talking about some of the boulders and, the positions, and they're all quite difficult. How did you find the round? How did you find the boulders?
I thought it was super cool. I thought it was really well set. I don't know, just lots of really interesting things that sometimes you don't always see in comps, and that was really cool to see.
Come on, Owen. Nice. Yeah. Any boulders that standing out? Any ones that are like,
I really like, well, there was like intricacy in all of them, I think. Like the first climb had that, like you could do it a couple ways, but the intended like jump over foot switch was really cool. And then I also really liked the third climb. The paddle was awesome.
Yeah.
Like loved it, the
oof,
black one.
Owen.
But yeah, I thought it was super cool.
And then you did the white one.
Yeah, I
And-
loved white.
So
White was
how
fun.
bad are these white footholds as we see now
Oh,
working through
they're-
red? How bad are they?
They're like you're on the wall. Like
Basically smears.
no feet,
Yes.
no feet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean
Wonder-
they're surprisingly like not awful considering like how shallow they are. But really cool.
Let's
That
work
was-
from
I
here.
loved white.
Yes. Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Awesome.
nice, nice.
Thanks. We saw you walking by.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah,
nice to get a
for a
little
second.
extra perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, let's
Thank you, Legs.
yeah.
See ya. See Nat cruising up. Maybe that might have been a flash from Nat.
I believe so.
It happened quite quickly.
And truthfully, wouldn't shock me at all. That is definitely a Nat style boulder.
Yeah.
It's like the perfect balance of kind of patience, power, and then just get me to the top and hold on.
You can be surprised watching a climber through a round at the boulders they do well on. Sometimes you're like, uh-oh, if they didn't do that, they won't do this.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, it doesn't have to be a very dramatic shift in style for it to be a boulder that they do. And they're like, oh, this is my jam.
Oh, Alan.
Oh, Alan. Just,
Yeah.
and the starts on boulders 2 for all categories. Everything is just a little more open than you want. The feet are all the kind of not quite where you want.
They're there, but it could be over there and it'd be a lot better.
Yeah. So the transition around the volume is what makes the start of this boulder, just frustrating.
Yeah, it's just off the bat. After the first move, you're immediately feeling the off balance. Nice. Now
And then when you commit, you get rewarded.
Yeah. So
Great stuff from Alan.
I believe it's going to be Alan's first time up here, and this top is not necessarily a gimme. And I'm hoping he reads.
Don't rush it.
Yes.
Don't rush it.
Yeah. So while we were testing this boulder, it is a very subtle beta, the intention that we kind of had behind this boulder. Though it's going to be a hard move to get both that hands on those holds, it will make that next move slightly easier instead of just crossing big and just hoping you kind of stick. Because you're going to a hold that at that time, Alan didn't know what it was going to feel like.
Yeah, and if you're not super familiar with the hold, and you're not super familiar whether or not you're in the right position, and you just sort of reach for it, you're like, it's so bad, but it's position dependent, and then now you're learning as you go, and sort of learn, adapt, and overcome in, as we say, 4 minutes. So if he gets back up there, will he have enough to make the
We
adjustment?
did just hear the minute whistle recently, so Alan is playing that game against the clock right now. But as we kind of mentioned earlier, Pete kind of brought it up of like, there's that fine line of, all right, do I want to waste too much energy on this before I have my last boulder?
And you're it can be so hard when you're so close. But you got yourself a zone.
Yep.
You're like, all right, that's pretty good.
Yep,
I'll take
exactly.
a zone. I'll take a
Yes.
zone.
Yes.
No one's expected to do all 4
No
finals
goodness.
boulders.
No goodness. That is,
So you know, you kind of be like, that's the one I don't do.
yeah. It's,
You have to hope that if you don't do the first one,
Yeah.
you're like, that's the one I don't do. Then you
Yeah.
do the second one, you're like, oh, well, I'll do 2.
Yeah, you're kind of gambling with yourself a
And then
little
you
bit.
don't do the third boulder, and you're like, maybe I should just go home.
Yeah.
And then you have to try the last one. So sometimes the round doesn't go quite as planned, but you definitely have to take it all in stride. You have to have that 4 minutes in the chair is where the mental side comes in. So you can grieve the boulder that you just failed on, but not for 4 minutes because you need to set yourself up for the next boulder. So you have to have a little bit of time transition of, I wish I'd done that boulder, but I didn't do it, and now I'm excited as we see.
So we end up